All right, Jason, so in this video, we're going to go over the custom content widget that we have, or item, in lessons, in our lesson builder. So what this is, I mean, we have like 18 different engagement formats. You can use SCORM files, you can do video uploads, you can do all sorts of like micro-learning um, engagements, but we wanted to give people the ability to create their own custom engagements.
Mhm.
And a lot of developers, a lot of people have a developer that they work with where there's like that little extra mile where they would love to create some kind of custom experience for maybe training on a software application, um, or just something that's real specific to their industry, and they want to create an experience around that.
Mm.
The first reason why we built it to create this custom tool is to do like reports on assessments. So you'd have an assessment question or multiple assessment questions, kind of like DISC, right? Or an assessment like, what's your spirit animal or something like that, right? Well, that's just a fun example, but basically you're going to have people wanted to be able to have people answer assessment questions like this. How well do you do this certain thing, or how confident are you in this other thing, and score them. But they wanted to do scoring in a little bit more powerful way. Okay,
Mhm.
calculate their own custom scores,
Mhm.
and then spit out a report that is dynamic, right? That's what the real the power around some of these assessments is that the report is personalized to the learner, personalized to the taker.
Mhm.
And if you think about the amount of work that you have to do to make one of these custom assessments, if you do it with yeah, you could start with something like WordPress, or you could start with some other kind of application, but you've got to deal with the user provisioning, right? You've got to deal with
Yeah.
the deployment of the thing and the issuance of the course to
Mhm.
somebody. You've
Mhm.
got to deal with, I could go through a huge list, but there's all these things that you have to do just to get to the fun part,
Mhm.
which is building a report.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
spitting out something custom. And so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to go like all the way to the end, and then let the developer do that last bit that's like real fun and the most valuable, right? Where the
Mhm.
trade knowledge comes into play.
Mhm.
And so what we allow you to do is something like this. I'm going to take this assessment question and I'm going to add one more. Okay. And we'll change the note. We'll say question two. And what people do with this, let's use these two assessments, and I'll get to the punchline here in a second. But I'm going to go into settings here, and I'm going to add a little advanced like metadata to each one of these assessments.
Okay.
So let's say I'm having somebody do a stress test, right? Where I'm testing them on their stress, and I'm asking questions that are kind of bury the lead. Those types of questions where you don't want to give away how they're answering.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Like you want to get a score where people can't affect the score. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So
Mhm.
here in the metadata, we might say category or topic. So here in topic, we'll put topic, um, stress, right? Um, and I'm not really making a great example here, but I think you get the idea, right? Where this one right
Mhm.
here, topic might be stress two. Okay, so now I basically underlying, I'm building a model around how I'm going to take the scores and make a bucket, how I'm going to bucketize the scores.
Mhm.
So the real value comes in the custom content tool is that it what we do is um, we let with one file. It's Vue Js code, and I'll explain that a little bit and how it works. We're going to go through the entire code and how you build these things. But what happens is when they get to this part of the experience in the lesson, we inject into your code the entire state of the lesson
Okay.
and the learner's profile. So you get the learner's information to do kind of placeholders like hi first name and that whatever you want. You
Mhm.
get the entire progress, like where they are in this, and you get the answers to all of the results, like all of the
Okay.
assessments. And
Mhm.
so it's like all the ingredients you need to kind of stir up and make a nice recipe and display that. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
So if so this is actually just a GitHub URL. It's a .vue extension, and we'll explain that here in a second. But it doesn't look like much, but it's really powerful. And it's just plain text, like that's the MIME type, so to speak. And we will suck this down. What's nice is that you can suck directly from GitHub user content or anywhere that supports what's called cores. So like anywhere you want to support where a file can be pulled over. File Stack, for example, the tool we use for uploading video, media and stuff, allows for this, like where you can pull across domain. All right, so we have this this HTML, this little Vue file, and what you're seeing here is just it's basically like a meta widget, right? Explains what this is all about. Okay, and then at the bottom, you'll see this button that says View property values. Okay, and it shows you an example of everything you get when you get to this point. Everything your code gets when you get to this point. So you have the start time and the end time, like basically when they started this thing. So you could do a timer, right? You have the lesson stats. So how many points did they get? Max points. Let's actually do this. Let's hit save and hit test. Okay. And so here it says, how well did you do that thing this week? So I'll say pretty well. All right. And then we'll go to the next one and say exceptionally well. All right. Now let's look at we have our score. That was dynamic. We have our completion rate. And then we have all of our context properties here, progress stats, the learner information, right? Their information about the current item. So it's real easy. You don't have to think about which item they're currently on, which is actually this custom item. Okay. And then the engagement state, which is basically the state for that item. So there's just a whole lot of really great stuff. And you have the full schema of the entire lesson. So if you want to look up what were the correct answers and the metadata, for example, here, like the topic. Okay. So I'm trying to explain to you, you have everything you need to make whatever you want, right? With the data from the lesson. And we provide some other APIs for things like updating the context profile, doing some other really cool stuff. So we'll go over that. So here, I want to open one of these in my editor. And I'm going to explain why we chose Vue and what we love about it, right? So Vue Js is a fantastic, library for writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's a JavaScript framework, but basically they allow you to make these little Vue files. And a Vue file is like a single file component. So this is completely different than when I was, cut my teeth on development. You would never do this. You'd never combine an HTML file, CSS file, and a JavaScript file in one page or one file, but you do nowadays. So it's a component. So think of it as a single little useful piece of an experience. And in this template here, I have my HTML. So we have a header, custom code, the paragraph, and this is just all the stuff you saw in that little example I showed you. Okay. And then down here, you'll start to see some placeholders. So right here it says learner first name. Okay. And right here it says CTX lesson stats point. CTX stands for context. So CTX is basically a pointer to everything that we give you. That's where it said like the pre right here, this pre tag. When you open that up, right here, we give you that pre tag filled with every bit of the context that you get. All right, you following so far?
Yeah.
Cool. Now you can style anything, and this is scoped. So if you put scoped there, that means it won't bleed to the rest of the app or the page or the portal. It'll just say scoped to whatever you're doing, which is really helpful. And so let's go through what's happening here, right? So I'm making a script tag and I'm using module exports. So this you have to do this, otherwise it won't work. Just module exports, and your entire little app will be in this object. Okay. And so the name here would be something you want to name this something that is descriptive to your app, right? So you might call it the assessment build, like the assessment report or something like that. Okay. Now what we pass in here, this is called props or properties. This is values or things that we pass into your component when it's built in the lesson. And we give you CTX, which is all that stuff I showed you, right? All of the information about the learner and all that. We give you UI, and UI is actually, our entire UI library. So our buttons and all this cool stuff is available for you in your component. So you can just start using it. Like you can use, if you saw here, you'll see it says V button right there, V button. What the heck is V button? That's a non-standard HTML tag. Well, actually that is a component that we pass to you so you can use it. So you can use our buttons, you can use our sliders, you can use all sorts of stuff. And if you want more information about that, reach out to us and we'll give it to you. But it's really cool because then you're not recreating, it looks the same as the rest of the application, except for anything that needs to be really custom. But you can just stand on the feet of, like stand on that existing platform and just use those things. Okay.
Yeah.
So very helpful. And then the app or the API, excuse me, API is we expose certain little functions, functions that you can use to talk back to ConveYour. So you can use like update learner, okay? And that'll update the learner's information in their profile if you've exposed that field where they can update it, okay? And then there's this idea of data. So let me. This is where we get into like just how Vue works in general. Okay, so data is basically data that you're going to provide to your component, to your HTML, and this is data that's like, think of it as like it's data that's personal to your component. Like it's not coming from the outside world. It's not coming from the lesson itself. It's coming from you need it for your app. Okay. So things like, do I have this thing toggled shut or open? I need to save that state, right? I need to be able to talk about the state. Remember when we talked about this, where it was like, this is called declarative state, right? Where you're just setting the state and then you're just turning CTX hidden on or off to change the view.
Yeah.
And so this is where we get into like, you got to learn Vue a little bit, but let me just show you how cool it is. When somebody clicks the button here, when somebody clicks this button right there to open this button or to hide, then all we're doing is when they click it, we're taking whatever the value currently is and we're flipping it. We're flipping it around, right?
Yeah.
So then right here we have v if CTX hidden, meaning if it's hidden or not hidden, excuse me, we'll show the styles. Otherwise it won't. This won't exist. That's the beauty of Vue. You write your HTML very declaratively, right?
Yeah.
Rather than having to write like code that goes, okay, now I got to go find that element in the page and I got to go hide that and then I got to go update the state. It's just annoying, right? And that's what's cool about Vue. All right, so now if you see here, this is just basically giving you, we expose your components. You don't need to, I would not remove that. And then here, I'll go over methods here in a second, but computed, what computeds are is they're actually functions that are treated like properties. And so when you go get them, when you go get a value like learner, it's actually running a function to get you the value.
Okay.
So do you remember earlier where I said learner dot? Let me show you learner. Learner dot. So learner dot first name. It's just shorthand for ctx.learner. I don't want to write it all, right? And I wanted to show people. So what it's doing first is when I grab that value learner, it's going to call this function, this method, and return this.ctx.learner. And so this is really valuable for doing things like filtered lists. So I could write, I'll give you an example one. Let's say I wanted to say, we say, what do we call it? We call it stress, right? Stress 1. So let's say I just want to get all the stress 1 assessment answers. So then I could write return this.ctx. What are they called? They are, let's look, let's reference. Go back here and go down to lesson, like lesson right there. And we want every lesson where the metadata was topic stress. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm going to write ctx.lessons.filter. So now I've just made a filtered list of all the lessons, like all of the items, right? I think it's actually lesson items, lesson.items, like this. I could check. All right. And so that's going to return an entire list. And then I can take that and make another computed, which is where I sum up the total points for lesson 1. So if I wanted to, I could do something like lesson 1 points. Okay. And then I'll just do all I have to do. And I'm not really good at what's called reduce. So I'll just do this. Let points equal 0. All right. And then I'll just do stress this dot stress 1. For each. We'll call this I. Actually, I just need to do that. And I do points plus equals I dot points. Okay. I think it's engagement state. So I just added up all the points for only the assessment questions that had the tag, meta tag, stress 1 and return points. So if I want to use that, and I don't think this is going to work because I didn't really check it and everything like that. I'm just trying to show you the concepts. Okay. Look right here. It says CTX lesson stats, completed perk. I could just add another one called, stress 1 points. And your stress 1 points were, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm gathering the data, I'm munging it, I'm getting it in the format I want, and then I'm dropping it right in to my template. Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to show is this concept of methods. So you see right here where it says emit completed. Okay. So we can actually give you the power of deciding when your little, widget is done.
Okay.
Meaning you can gate the access moving forward. So do you see here where it says not finished here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I get down to the bottom and I hit the complete button, all right, it's going to fire and emit this event called completed, which is what the parent context is looking for to say, okay, this widget's completed with its work.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So you could build entire experiences where they have multiple attempts and all this other stuff, and they're not actually getting the result that you need. Okay. And then only when you fire completed,
Yeah.
we move forward. And so let me show you that at click. Okay, we have one click there. At click complete. That's all I had to do. Right.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to hit the complete button, and it's going to send me to the next section. I'm done. All right. So you can do things like call out to other scripts. You can do the world's your oyster, right? Like with regards to how you can set that up. All right. So I'm running this little local host little app, this Node.js server, and it basically just serves up the file. What's fun is I can take this file, this URL, and I can use it on ConveYour, and it'll serve up this file. So that's what makes it so fun, because that's the way the browser works. Is like the browser does not care about where it's being served from. So when you're testing this out, you can actually use localhost and test it out. You make changes and refresh, and it'll pick up the change. And we even did like a refresh reload where you can make changes and it updates immediately. Now, what's so cool is that once you're ready, all you have to do is do a git push, and it updates everywhere you've referenced that content widget. So a lot of time the widgets are really simple little things like, hey, we need your mobile number, or don't forget to you could iframe in like a specific little app that you have on your website, and you want to make sure people visit that over and over again. So you could spread that all over in your lessons, and as long as you update that URL, it's going to update everywhere where you've referenced that content widget. So it's like reuse, just like a lesson is reusable. It's reusable across all of your projects.
Yeah.
It's really helpful. So the future of this is, right now, this is really about taking all the content you get up here, and then using that in your application. But what I want to do is actually allow you to, when you drop this in, we'll discover that you're asking, your app has a manifest and
Mhm.
is asking to create fields that you need information from the person creating the lesson.
Okay.
So imagine if I dropped it in and then it made new fields that I need from you for this thing to work,
Gotcha.
like a color or the title and that sort of stuff. Now, we
Yeah.
do have a way to do this right now. It's just not, it's not super dialed in. You have to talk to the creator. And you do that through that metadata. So what people will do is they'll basically parameterize their content. So for example, right here where it says custom code sample, maybe that's not what I want for the title, right? So I'll just say ctx dot current item dot metadata, and I would make a computed which is called meta, where he just returns meta, and then I can just type it really fast. But I'll
Yeah.
do metadata dot title.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a path right there. All right, so now I can just go in and I can go into my settings here, and I could type in title, um, super amazing widget, save. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then we'll reference that. And so if people are like, well, we use this all the time, you need to make it more flexible. We need more ability to change the copy and make rules. Then you can do that here, okay? And then reuse that in your application. So later on, it's going to basically be like a plugin system where we could make widgets. The goal is to be able to make, I call them widgets interchangeably with items, but we'd be able to make like lesson item experiences that are
Okay.
100% driven without making a code update to ConveYour,
I
right?
see.
It's just basically, developers and instructional designers can bring really cool stuff that they build and can use it in this ecosystem,
Mhm.
right? Like a little app library,
Yeah.
um, and then just add them. So yeah, so that's how custom content works. Do you have any questions about how custom content works?
Yeah, do you have to use GitHub?
No, you don't have to use GitHub. I just use GitHub because they have this thing called gist, GitHub gist, and they're
Yeah.
just like a one file, or you can have multiple files, but they're really small little projects, and
Mhm.
it makes this getting started really easy. Um, and they allow for what's called cores. So if you're going to go pull that resource down, pull that
Mhm.
file down, it's got to
Mhm.
be able to be requested across what's called a cross domain request.
Okay.
Um, and so later we might be able to host them on the person's application, like just like how we host SCORM files, we could host these little code apps right on the product. We don't do that
Okay.
right now, so it has to be on something that's referenceable like that.
I got you. So but this does assume, I mean, obviously you're talking to developers, so this
Yeah,
assumes that people have a working understanding of
yeah,
CSS, HTML.
right.
I mean,
It's made for developers, so it's
gotcha.
definitely made for a team that has some development experience, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
We chose a popular, pretty easy to pick up, tool
Mhm.
to do this, and
When you say
really
that,
like
you mean Vue,
yeah, Vue. So Vue is really
Vue.js. Yeah.
popular. Vue and React in terms of JavaScript libraries are really high up there.
Yeah.
It's much easier to be very productive in it than say like a vanilla JavaScript or jQuery,
Mhm.
um, because of this declarative model. It's more like building a template, right, and then
Mhm.
coming back. Now, some tips on this is, and we do a lot of this code. So the tip is to really get your HTML and styling right, get what you want, and then come back and turn that into, a live, living, breathing document.